North Korea claims that Americans are suffering from nuclear phobia, laughing at American fears of a North Korean attack and the chaos caused by recent events believed to be signs of nuclear war. Nuclear phobia by the nuclear force of the DPRK has now caused a tragicomedy in the U.S., the state-run Korean Central News Agency reported Friday. North Korean state media called attention to fake mobile alerts and social media messages sent to American military families in the South in September 2017 calling for an evacuation, a false alert warning of an imminent missile strike sent out to the people of Hawaii, and a meteor that some perceived as a North Korean attack. Earlier this week, a meteor fell from the sky between Ohio and Michigan with a great bang, brightening the sky, KCNA reported, adding that some observers suggested online that the fireball in the sky could have been a nuclear bomb flown from North Korea. The false alert in Hawaii over the weekend caused great disarray and chaos in the Aloha State, North Korean state media said, further commenting that the situation was ridiculous. The North also mocked the fear that resulted from fake warnings sent to military families last year ordering an evacuation, a sign that war is on the horizon. In the U.S., people caught in extreme fear vied with each other to buy frozen foods, gas masks and goods for emergency use, indicative of the pain suffered by the Americans stricken by war phobia, KCNA wrote, exaggerating. North Korea has developed intercontinental ballistic missiles theoretically able to range the continental U.S. and a hydrogen bomb. Furthermore, the North regularly threatens the U.S. with annihilation by fire. Nonetheless, North Korea asserts that this hysteria is being fueled by U.S. actions, not North Korean aggression. The consecutive fuss in the U.S. and fear, North Korean state media wrote, caused by even the natural phenomenon being mistaken as a rocket from the DPRK are the natural outcome of the acts done by the U.S. itself. Of course, while the North mocks the U.S. for occasional panic, North Korea regularly expresses displeasure with America's massive military presence in the region and the ever-present threat of destruction that hangs over North Korea. Follow Ryan on Twitter. Freedom of speech isn't free. The Daily Caller News Foundation is working hard to balance out the biased American media. For as little as $3, you can help us. Make a one-time donation to support the quality, independent journalism of the DCNF. We're not dependent on commercial or political support and we do not accept in any government funding. Content created by the Daily Caller News Foundation is available without charge to any eligible news publisher that can provide a large audience. For licensing opportunities of our original content, please contact email protected. Tags, Hawaii, North Korea.
America is apparently ready for war with North Korea. That from our Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who warned that if Kim Jong-un and company do not agree to enter negotiations to give up their nuclear weapons, the U.S. military is going to drop the hammer. It's a sobering statement delivered at a 20-nation summit in Canada designed to show the communist regime that the world has had it up to here, our northern border that needs a wall. The problem is Russia and China, well, they weren't invited, as they are rumored partners with North Korea. So there's not total solidarity, but what will you expect?
Sanctions and pressure will remain in place until North Korea gives up its nuclear weapons. That's what top diplomats from 20 countries said at the Vancouver summit on Tuesday local time. In a joint statement, 20 nations vowed to support the inter-Korean talks in the hope of a sustained easing of tensions. But the statement also called on individual nations to impose tougher unilateral sanctions that go beyond UN Security Council resolutions to pressure the North. In particular, the nations at the meeting pledged to improve maritime interdiction operations and stop illicit ship-to-ship transfers to block trade with North Korea. South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa expressed hope that the momentum for engagement with the North will go beyond the Winter Olympics while emphasizing that sanctions should be applied more rigorously. While repeating the sentiment that diplomacy is the best option, U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson warned that the world will not accept North Korea as a nuclear state and rejected a freeze in South Korea U.S. military drills in exchange for a pause in the North's weapons development program.
North Koreans know our channels are open and they know where to find us. But a sustained cessation of North Korea's threatening behavior is necessary. Our nations must remain united on sustaining pressure until North Korea takes concrete steps toward and ultimately reaches denuclearization.
While the nations warned about the growing threat of North Korea's nuclear weapons and the need for tougher sanctions, they also welcomed the turnaround in inter-Korean ties, expressing hope that diplomatic efforts can help achieve a peaceful denuclearization of the Korean peninsula.
There is a bright spot amongst all of the dark talk of Armageddon. North and South Korea joining together for the Olympics. The peninsula will march together at the opening ceremony of the Olympic Winter Games and team up for a few sports as well. So does any of this show real promise for peace, or is it just delaying the inevitable? Joining me now, my friend Brian Suits, KFI radio host and an Iraq combat war veteran. Welcome back to the show, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. And I point back at you, friend. So let's talk about this a little bit, because it appears that for most of the Young administration, Rex Tillerson has played good cop on North Korea. This is a lot tougher talk from him. Does this symbolize a shift in the administration, or are we really on a death march?
Well, it's almost like they took the old good cop, bad cop routine, and yesterday it morphed into less bad cop and bad cop, because it's almost like he's a front man for the Pentagon at this point. It looks like by getting the old band back together from the 1950 original Korean War, Revenge of the Sith, that it looks more like we're getting consent, like we're getting public consent from the prior participants on the UN side. Recall, because there's no peace treaty.
Yeah.
That's still an ongoing situation. China and Russia, of course, were the primary allies of North Korea, so of course they're not going to get invited to Vancouver.
Well, that's sad, because it's a lovely city, particularly this time of year. And now the president is saying that where China has pulled back, helping and appeasing North Korea, skirting some of these sanctions, Russia has picked up the filthy slack. Is that true? And that doesn't seem like they're being very helpful at all, especially for being our puppet master.
It is absolutely true. People who don't have a fine enough map of North Korea may not know this, but at the far east end of the Korean-Chinese border is about 20 kilometers of North Korean-Russian border. And the Russians have reinforced that area of the border. It's probably one of the most heavily reconnoitered areas by the U.S. Of the earth right now. And yes, the Russians are taking North Korean coal out, which are not supposed to be, and large tarp-covered trucks are going into North Korea. So it's not it doesn't take a genius or a satellite to know this.
No, and they're reinforcing it with whole wheat crackers and ham sandwiches and the like. That may be a metaphor for something else. So, Suits, let me ask you this, because there's a lot of talk, because obviously no one wants a protracted war. No one wants a 17-year conflict on the Korean peninsula. The South Koreans don't want it. I hope the North Koreans don't want it. Chinese don't want it. We certainly don't want it. But there's talk of something called a bloody nose. Explain what that is, because everyone nods and goes, oh, yeah, bloody nose, totally. But I think people really have no idea what it means, including myself.
The notion would be that we would conduct a strike so limited that none of the actual airstrikes would originate from South Korea or Japan. And so that would give them, moral cover to say, don't retaliate on us, that everything would happen from Guam and Okinawa, which is still Japan, and that it would be a 5 or 6 night or day and night strike, including possible use of ground troops in North Korea to absolutely, utterly destroy their nuclear and missile infrastructure. And then the threat would be, if you retaliate, you're going to make it a bigger war, and you're not going to want that. And the notion that the North Koreans would just sit back and let somebody invade them for 5 days is, I think, amazingly naive. But the U.S. military's job is to be ready for every contingency.
Yeah.
So that's why they've been doing paratrooper drops in Nevada after a 4-hour flight from North Carolina, 4 to 5 hours. It simulates roughly getting on the plane in Guam and then dropping on North Korea. And so that's the bloody nose, is just give them a 5-day bloody nose and actually think that this regime would sit back and go, you know what, we're gonna hire a life coach and rethink our choices.
They're probably going to do that, because life coaches are very, very popular in Pyongyang. So we only have about 30 seconds left. What is the cost to us and to the world for North Korea keeping their nuclear weapons program?
Allowing a wacky regime to have nuclear leverage on anything they choose to use it for, inclusion in the Olympics, drop the letter B from the English language. I mean, if this is not a rational actor, And it's not like Pakistan, India, or U.S., USSR.
Yeah.
This is a regime that starved its own people to gain nuclear weapons, and you're telling me they wouldn't use it for every international dispute as leverage? It's crazy.
Yeah, they hurt and kill the people they purport to love most. So why wouldn't they use those weapons of mass destruction to kill people they actually hate, meaning us? Point well taken, Brian Suits. Thank you for being here. Always good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to be
Camera.
Yeah, I like it.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump says he's willing to hold direct talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, but doesn't think an actual meeting would resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. In an interview with Reuters, President Trump said he was uncertain talks would lead to anything meaningful, noting negotiations with Pyongyang by previous U.S. administrations have not been successful. He expressed hope to resolve the North Korean issue in a peaceful way, but thinks it's very possible that